Hello everyone, I'm a witch, and it's only partly a costume considering that I have a black cat sleeping on me, and I've done 3 rituals tonight, but let's not talk about those, let's talk about Halloween. Now, I don't know how many of you are of American continent-ish, because outside of like American continent-ish, Halloween just kinda goes away or is filtered through a very American lens, which means that honestly most people know nothing about whether that tradition has any kind of spiritual roots at all, outside of it's that time in America when children dress up in costumes and go ask for candy from strangers, as if that is an entirely safe practice to do. Sometimes people try to copy that in other countries, and oftentimes if you grow up in like non-English speaking country, all you would get is old people yelling at you to stop becoming Americanized, that it's not good for your culture. I know where they're coming from, but it's kind of traumatic experience for little kids. So yeah, that's the extent of the knowledge that I had on Halloween for most of my life, but that doesn't mean that my own country didn't really have traditions to do on about the same days, and these traditions were for the most part fairly Christian, outside of like a couple of little itty tidbits that kind of sound like a not entirely a Christian thing. So I thought, hey, why don't I just read about the history of Halloween and see how my family traditions compare to what was traditional, and let me just give you some ideas on how to spend that holiday a bit more spiritually, or at least in a way that's a bit more connected to the roots of where things came from. Now, my background is random Google images, and I will be reading Wikipedia to you for the most part. I highlighted the important bits, we're not reading the whole page. It's because I kind of just needed the basis to talk about this topic and to build upon it, and it's easier to take that basis from places that already have compiled all that information for you to be freely available. If you don't want to be staring at a pumpkin head from I don't know where for all this time, you can also stare at the toffee apple that I had today with my black cat that's currently sleeping on me, sitting in the background of that picture. That was a couple of hours ago. I wasn't saving that toffee apple for that long, so sorry it's gone. I think it's better if we just switch to this dude, whatever this dude is, and let's get to reading. Halloween or Halloween, yeah, I'm good at reading, don't worry about it. Less commonly known as All Halloween, All Hallows Eve, or All Saints Eve, is a celebration observed in many countries on the 31st of October, the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day. It is at the beginning of the observance of All Hallowtide. Names are gonna be difficult. Whenever I can just not say one, I will just choose not to say one. The time in the liturgical year dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, hallows, martyrs, and all of the faithful departed. In popular culture, the day has become a celebration of horror, being associated with the macabre or the supernatural, and the whole like remembering the dead is how my country does it. Like what we do is it's a day dedicated to kind of being somber and sad, and then you go and you clean up graves of your dead relatives. You light a candle. I took like a Google image picture of what it looks like, but it honestly looks quite surreal, because despite the fact that people like start going there fairly early, like 4 or 5 p.m., like do all of the, grave taking care of, like removing any kind of weeds or anything, putting down flowers, lighting a candle. By the time people are leaving, it tends to be after dark. And our cemeteries are not really necessarily flat fields. So what you will often see is like whole mountains of just lights. And it is such a peaceful and interesting thing to observe. It's kind of thing that I miss from home, morbidly enough. And even the lantern, like the candle that you light, it's a bit of a special candle. And this is one of the pictures that I found, kind of what I can show to you about it. It's not the fact that it's bulbous, it's the fact that it has this like metal thingy on the top so that the wind can't like blow it off. So like it will have this like metal lid, and you will just go to the store and buy the special candles to place on graves together with some flowers for your loved ones, and you're gonna like place all of that after, you know, cleaning up the graves. And then you will go back home and you're gonna have a dinner with your family, and you're gonna leave an empty plate for dearly departed at your table because you're inviting any kind of friendly relative spirits to, you know, come and join in your meal with you. It's what we do. It's how I remember this day. It's why when people started dressing up all like festive and Americanized and going out to like other strangers and going like, trick or treat, give us candy, people would get so upset and so mad because it's supposed to be this somber day. It's supposed to be a remembrance of the dead, of past loved ones. It's not supposed to be this like happy party sort of vibe that American celebration tends to have. Anyway, let's read up on the origins of the celebration from the angle of Christianity, because there are two angles and we're gonna get to the other one as well, and we're gonna get to suggestions based on both of them. The English word Halloween comes from All Hallows Eve, being the evening before the Christian holy days of All Hallows Day, All Saints' Day, on 1st of November, and All Souls' Day on 2nd of November. Since the time of the early church, major feasts in Christianity such as Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost. Sorry, I'm not used to reading words that I haven't seen before. Feel like I should have seen it, but I didn't. Had vigils that began the night before, as did the Feast of All Hallows. These 3 days are collectively called All-Hallow-Tide. Really? Tide? And are a time when Western Christians honor all saints and pray for recently departed souls who have yet to reach heaven. By 800s, I'm so not used to things being so far away that I just want to insert an extra 1,000 in there, I'm sorry. By 800s, there is evidence that churches in Ireland and Northumbria were holding a feast commemorating All Saints on the 1st of November. By the end of the 12th century, the celebration had become known as the Holy Days of Obligation in Western Christianity and involved such traditions as ringing church bells for souls in purgatory. It has also customary for criers dressed in black to parade the streets, ringing a bell of mournful sound and calling on all good Christians to remember the poor souls. The All-Hallow-Tide custom of baking and sharing soul cakes, and soul cake is like this spicy sweet cookie, apparently. Like they would put in quite a few nice spices in it, and that's what it used to look like. I pulled up a picture because some people are visual. For All Christ and Souls has been suggested as the origin of trick-or-treating. The custom dates back at least for as far as the 15th century and was found in parts of England, Wales, Flanders, Flavaria, and Austria. Flavaria, Bavaria. There we go. My eyesight. God help me. Groups of poor people, often children, would go door to door during All-Hallow-Tide, collecting soul cakes in exchange for praying for the dead, especially the souls of the giver's friends and relatives. This was called souling. Soul cakes were also offered for the souls themselves to eat, or the soulers would act as their representatives. So like this poor child would eat your cookie, and it will be seen as the spirit taking in your cookie because this poor child is now the representative of the spirit. While souling, Christians would carry lanterns made of hollowed out turnips, which could have originally represented souls of the dead. Jack-o'-lanterns were used to ward off evil spirits, so let's just come back to our happy, shiny pumpkin that totally doesn't seem all that evil. On All Saints and All Souls Day during the 19th century, candles were lit in homes in Ireland, Flanders, Bavaria, and in Tyrol, where they were called soul lights, that served to guide the souls back to visit their earthly homes. In many of these places, candles were also lit at graves on All Souls Day. Oh, that just reminds me of my own home holiday. In Brittany, libations of milk were poured on the graves of kinfolk, or food would be left overnight on the dinner table for the returning souls. A custom also found in Tyrol and parts of Italy. Christian minister Prince Sori Conte linked the wearing of costumes to the belief on vengeful ghosts. It was traditionally believed that the souls of the departed wandered the earth until All Saints' Day and All Hallows' Eve provided one last chance for the dead to gain vengeance on their enemies before moving to the next world. In order to avoid being recognized by any soul that might be seeking such vengeance, people would don masks or costumes. And I highlighted this bit as well. In parts of Italy until the 15th century, families left a meal out for the ghosts of relatives before leaving for church services, because it just really reminds me of that tradition to like go home and have a meal with your family and just like put out some nice dishware for your ghosties and invite them to the table. I'm not even entirely sure if my family believed in ghosties, but I do remember that ghosties being welcome at any kind of festive tables where people gather to eat. For reasons. I'm not entirely... Was my family aware why they were doing the holiday traditions, or was it just a tradition? I don't actually know. I am not entirely sure that anyone in my family has ever been haunted by anything, but it was a tradition to leave out the plate for the ghosties and to, invite them at their table. So it's nice to know that that's a tradition not only in my country, but apparently at some point giving food to the departed was also a tradition in Italy. And as far as I know, it's also a tradition in some East Asian countries. That's the word, that one. I know that sometimes people offer food to their departed there. And I highlighted it because it reminded me of my own family history. But anyway, let's move on from the Christian bit. That's like me summarizing how to see the whole holiday celebration thing from the Christian angle. Let's do it from Gaelic folk influences, or more specifically of how much of Samhain ended up inside of Halloween. The origins of Halloween customs are typically linked to the Gaelic festival Samhain. Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year. It was seen as liminal time, when the boundary between this world and the other world thinned. This meant that the spirits or fairies could more easily come into this world and were particularly active. There's quite a lot of words in here that I will never be able to pronounce. They're mostly Irish. I have Irish friends. I really don't want to offend them, so I'm just gonna avoid them to my best of ability. At Samhain, the spirits or fairies were appeased to ensure that people and livestock survived the winter. Offerings of food and drink or portions of the crops were left outside for them. The souls of the dead were also said to revisit their homes, seeking hospitality. Places were set at the dinner table and by the fire to welcome them. Throughout Ireland and Britain, especially in the Celtic-speaking regions, the household festivities included divination rituals and games intended to foretell one's future, especially regarding death or marriage. I remember this to also be a thing that was in my country's traditions, but wasn't practiced by my family because it was seen as outdated and nobody that I knew practiced it in the 90s. Or 2000s, because that's when I was a kid. But it was probably practiced at about 1900s, because I got to read about it somewhere in a book at one point at school. Therefore, it was definitely known, definitely there, just not a more regular thing. I do know that my grandmother, which would have been young at trying to plan the date now. Give me a second. 60s, 70s, about there. It was about 60s, really. That at about 60s, her friend was doing divination with tarot cards, which are obviously not native to my country, but that was a thing. So I wonder if that's still kind of in the 1960s in Soviet Lithuania, whether that still kind of went into like celebrating the automy thing, or whether that was just a random thing. But anyway, at some point, divination was also kind of part of the thing that's practiced in my country and then just kind of fell off the cliff and died, and I don't exactly know when. Apples and nuts were often used, and customs included apple bobbing, nut roasting, scrying or mirror gazing, pouring molten lead or egg whites into water, dream interpretation, and others. Special bonfires were lit, and there were rituals involving them. Their flames, smoke, and ashes were deemed to have protective and cleansing powers. In some places, torches lit from the bonfire were carried sunwise around homes and fields to protect them. From at least the 16th century, the festival included mumming and guising in Ireland, Scotland, the Isle of Man, and Wales. This involved people going house to house in costume or in disguise, usually reciting verses or songs in exchange for food. It may have originally been a tradition whereby people impersonated the spirits or the souls of the dead and received offerings on their behalf, similar to souling. Impersonating these beings or wearing a disguise was also believed to protect oneself from them. In parts of Southern Ireland, the guises included a hobby horse. A man dressed as a white mare led youths house to house reciting verses. And I really need to show you a picture about it, because I read quite a lot of books about British or mythology and the UK in general. This one I have not finished for forever now because it is a very tough read, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I also like reading magazines about British folklore because I've been living here for the past 12 years. So while I'm entirely not native, I feel like I should know about their customs and traditions, if only to respect the culture, which probably most people largely not subscribe to anyway, but it kind of feels like an important thing to do. I don't know why. I read about that one and quite a few of them before. Honestly, really cool. Just really, that's all I can say. That is what a white horse would look like. Really cool. Some of which had pagan overtones in exchange for food. If the household donated food, it could also expect good fortune from the... Not gonna pronounce this. Gonna try. Mukola. Not doing so would bring misfortune. In Scotland, youths went house to house, with masked, painted or blackened faces, often threatening to do mischief if they were not welcomed. So see, pull a prank. And that is where Halloween came from. And one side the Samhain, the other side the Christian traditions. So now we can have a bit of a different conversation. And for this, I think I should at the very least change the camera angle to make myself a bit bigger. I would love to put down the green screen and show you my gray wall. I don't know why I would love to do that. It's very non-interesting. It just kind of feels more personal and intimate. But I have a cat on my lap right now. And it's kind of sacred to not touch or disturb the cats. That's not a religious thing. That is a people thing. It's just if a cat sleeps on you, you are the chosen one. You're not moving ever again. If you die and turn into a skeleton, that's your problem. The cat had a good nap. It deserves one because it is a good boy. It is a good black boy. So let me just, get the whole camera setup going. Isn't this a lot more nice and intimate? Mind you, I don't have a lot of arm space because I had to cut my green screen at very awkward angles in order to just not show it to you where it ends. I normally reposition it for this position and then it's better. But this will do. Like, it involves minimum cat moving, which is absolutely important. So, what can you do to make your Halloween feel a bit more spiritual? How about lighting a candle for your dearly departed ones? You know, family members, people you would like to remember. You might want to go and, clean up their graves if those exist on that day, but I'm not entirely sure about your schedule, and if it's like not a normal thing to do in your country, you might feel weird about it. So perhaps just like light a candle up at home. You can cook a meal for your family and like place them some cutlery and plates, and even portion out a bit of food for your dearly departed loved ones, because the world is thin, so you can always invite them to your home. That's on the more solemn side of things. You can practice divination, my favorite Black Mirror. Now, I don't actually suggest doing divination in like a party as a party trick, because I feel like these kind of things should be taken seriously. And it used to be done in groups together with probably very jolly youth, honestly, but at the same time, it was taken seriously. So when you have all of your atheist friends over that are gonna just like laugh at your cards, that's kind of the wrong atmosphere for doing any kind of divination. So for Black Mirror gazing, just focus on like a specific question that you have, like, how will the husband that I will marry look like? How will my wife look like? What does the afterlife look like? Is my deceased granny having a great time? Anything that is rather visual. If you want to be on topic, kind of future related, I suggest staying out of morbid. So questions like how will I die? Just doesn't seem very fitting. Like maybe don't ask those ones. That's a bit too morbid. You would just then focus on a piece of Black Mirror, or honestly, you can use a phone screen or your monitor screen with lights off. Try not to see your own face in it, so you would just kind of angle it away from yourself, place it down somewhere comfortable, and keep it at about arm's length. I'm trying to give you a distance that I don't need to remember in centimeters or feet, but that's about correct. So just make sure that it's not really reflecting anything and that you're far enough away and that you can comfortably sit staring at it for a prolonged amount of time, because you'll probably be staring at it for like 30 or 40 minutes before you see anything, because it just kind of requires your mind to start a bit like going into a rather trancy state. And just like, keep on staring until it eventually starts forming shapes and you can interpret those shapes. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can also burn a candle that's more better if not in a jar. Just like, I don't know, take like a long wax candle and burn that down. Plus that's gonna burn pretty fast. Or get some tea leaves and drink tea with tea leaves. If you can't do that, most people have coffee grounds. Drink coffee with coffee grounds. Bean soup is not the same as tea. I need to remember that. Because what it's gonna leave is an improperly burnt pillar candle tends to leak wax, and that tends to collect at the bottom. A tea leaves left in the cup or coffee grounds left in the cup, it will leave the coffee grounds / tea leaves at the bottom of the cup. When you're done drinking it, and just like slap it on the plate, turn your cup upside down, it's gonna be a bit wet, that's fine. And then you will just be interpreting the shape that came out of there. If you don't want to be staring at something for good 30 minutes, of course, you can just do something a bit more I can't say traditional, but I can definitely say New Age traditional, where everyone and your mom has a pair of tarot cards. You can get those. You can also do it with Marseille cards if you're old school, or playing cards if you're really old school, both of which would require you to know those systems. Like, don't just pull a random card and go, what does it mean? Like, that requires practicing beforehand, but wax divination, coffee ground / tea leaves divination, black mirror staring, it depends a lot on your intuition and what you think the shapely shapes kind of look like. So it's just a pretty easy thing to pull off in case you wanna, practice some divination on that night. Now, when you know what the traditions are meant for, you can also just practice the regular traditions, like light jack-o'-lanterns to keep the evil spirits away. Dress up as not yourself to keep the evil spirits away. a lot of traditions seem to just have to do with keeping the spirits away. Or if you're a bit chaos-oriented, like, chaos magician, and just wanna push and pull things as you feel fit, or if you're a very specific type of pagan that practices with very specific gods, there we go, you can make your own tradition that relates to the god that you're worshipping, and it's fairly easy to think of some over here. Odin likes to disguise himself as a beggar and see if people treat him nicely. And if people treated him nicely, he would be like, ah ha ha, I am Odin, and like reward them. So if your religion is related to Norse paganism, what you could do is you could dress up as not yourself and see if your friends recognize you when you go to their party. If they do, bring a small gift for the ghost host, because it's gonna be fine. There are a lot of gods related to celebrations, going dead drunk, or the harvest, or harvest celebrations. For example, Bacchus is the god of wine. I'm pretty sure that getting dead drunk on, maybe not the dead part of the drunk, like try to keep it above the level where you will hate yourself in the morning. But I imagine getting drunk on wine is very fitting for Halloween, so you can dedicate that whole day to Bacchus if you would really feel like it. There are, of course, trickster type entities like Loki, which a lot of people loved to adapt to their mythology all of a sudden. So why not pull a prank on your friends? Now, if you want to still keep your friends, make sure that the prank doesn't make them feel angry, sad, annoyed, and doesn't give them a heart attack. A good prank would be to order one of those cakes that looks like not a cake, and then be like, hey friend, wanna come into my bedroom to see my new pair of shoes that I just bought? And then suddenly you take out a knife and you start cutting the shoe, and the friend goes, oh no, and it's actually cake. And everybody just gets really happy, and you get to be like, I pranked you, here, have some cake. Instead of just like making it the sad way around of like, hey, I am gifting you some shoes, now let me take out a knife and stab them. That wouldn't make your friend very happy. So please, pay attention to your friends' feelings if you still want to have friends afterwards. And also don't do anything that might give them a heart attack. Like jumping out of a garbage bin and going a booga booga might be very fun in the moment, but if your friend suddenly gets really short of breath and collapses right in front of you, it's gonna be a lot less of a fun moment. So perhaps don't do this. It is once again a day when the veil is thin, at the very least that's how it's perceived, So it's perfect time for any kind of spiritual communication, like grab your Ouija board. Just once again, don't invite non-serious friends to that. It just gets really weird when you do that. Like, yeah, Ouija board is meant to be a party toy, but if you're actually gonna be attempting spiritual communication, at least be with other people that believe in that sort of thing. You know, so that somebody doesn't just start fucking with you. You can say hello to dead relatives. You can just meditate on your gods. Once again, it's a great day for, you know, loads of spirits. It's the spirit day. It's the day of the dead. Think necromancy, think gods, think meditation, think dreams, think dream interpretation. Think slightly mind-altering substances and then dreams, which probably would make them a bit crazier. And once again, you can just do the non-spiritual thing and just go out and have fun. And if your god is Bacchus, that can even be a very spiritual thing instead. So there you go. That's how you turn your Halloween a bit more spiritual. I hope that this video helped. I don't know where I was going to it. Now, mind you, I don't even have any jack-o'-lanterns because, once again, I'm a very old-school Lithuanian. This celebration is entirely alien to me, so bear with me. But I do have some oranges, which kind of looks like a tiny pumpkins if you squint your eyes. But it won't be really cutting it because it would spray me if I did. I hope that you liked this video. If you like this video, I do quite a lot of spiritual videos that tend to normally be a bit more organized than this. And normally it's all ad-libbed because I hate writing everything down in like a neat notepad and then reading off it, because my own ability to read things in one go on camera can get a bit stressful and it's very obvious when I'm reading. Normally it's a bit ad-libbed, but I tend to know where the video is supposed to go. I tend to end up repeating the same thing like 3 times over. But it's cool. It's fine. I do occult stuff in video games. I don't know what to tell you. And the videos always feature me in it. So there's that. If you like me, please subscribe. I would love to see that number raise. And I hope that you're gonna have a really good celebration. As for me, I will probably be streaming on that night. I don't know how that happened, but I kind of needed a Friday in order to do my rituals, because they're kind of Venus related, and that's the day. Friday is the day for Venus, don't question it. So I kind of offloaded them today, and then Thursday next week is Halloween. So that's not a Friday. So would have been fairly bad timing. So I did them now instead. Today. But also tomorrow I'm gonna be watching a Halloweeny movie with my guildmates. That also counts as celebrating. So I think I did majority of my celebrating in advance, especially the spiritual bits of it. I'll probably be doing a little bit more. Maybe I'll pull out some divination for myself on the night, but like that's about all that I'm doing. What are your plans? How did your family normally celebrate Halloween? Because once again, it makes me feel like such an odd one. But like having a tradition of like being solemn, going and cleaning up the graves and, you know, lighting the candles for your dead and enjoying the peace of it when the Americans are running around asking for candy from everyone while wearing masks. So it feels like a completely different culture. So I would love to hear, what do you culturally do on those days? And whether you're gonna adapt anything from over here to do culture. Did this video give you ideas? I suppose that's the question. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope I'm gonna see you in my other videos. I tend to upload like 3 times a week at the moment, which is kind of a lot, but still. And I tend to do 1 stream, and then 2 videos tend to be like talky videos like these. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching. Toodaloo.